If you're thinking about buying horse property in Vail, Arizona, there are 5 things nobody talks about until it's too late. And by too late, I mean after you've already written the check. Let me walk you through what actually needs to be done before you buy. I'm Meg Estees, your Easy Home Girl, and I've lived in Vail since 1995. I specialize in ranch and horse property in Vail, Sonoyta, Tinque Verde, and the surrounding areas. And here's what I've learned. Most people fall in love with the idea of horse property, the acreage, the views, the lifestyle, and that is all great. But there are real logistic challenges that come with owning rural property in Arizona. And if you don't know what to look for, you can end up with a property that costs you tens of thousands of dollars to make functional. So today I'm breaking down the 5 critical issues you need to understand before you buy horse property in Vail. These are the things that catch buyers off guard. These are the conversations that we have after the inspection that change people's minds. This is what nobody tells you up front. So let's get into it. Issue number 1, zoning is more complicated than you think. Most people assume that if a property has acreage and a barn, it's automatically zoned for horses. That's not how it works in Pima County. Let me explain the 3 main zoning designations you'll see here in Vail. First is SR zoning. That stands for suburban ranch. This is the most flexible zoning for horse property. SR typically requires a minimum of 3.3 acres per lot, and it allows for agricultural use, including horses, livestock, and small-scale farming. If you want horse property and want the freedom to use it however you see fit, SR zoning is what you're looking for. Second is CR1. That is country residential. CR1 usually requires larger lot sizes, often 10 acres or more. It's designated for low density rural living. Horses are allowed, but there may be restrictions on how many animals you can have per acre. Here's where it gets tricky. Some CR1 properties have HOAs or deed restrictions that limit the number of horses or require certain setbacks for barns and arenas. So even if the zoning allows it, the HOA might not. Third is MH1. That's manufactured home zoning. You'll occasionally see MH1 properties marketed as horse properties because they have acreage. And technically horses may be allowed, but MH1 is designed for manufactured homes and the restrictions can be limiting. If you're serious about horse property, SR or CR1 is definitely what you want. Now, here's the part that catches people. Just because a property is zoned for horses doesn't mean it's ready for horses. Zoning tells you what's allowed, but it doesn't tell you if the infrastructure is in place. That's where the next 4 issues come in. Issue number 2, water is the biggest hidden risk. This is the single most important thing you need to understand about buying horse property. Water can make or break your investment. Most horse properties in Vail are not on city water. They're on wells, and that means you're entirely dependent on groundwater. But here's what you need to know. First, does the property have a well? If yes, is it drilled and producing? Or is it a dry well that was never completed? Second, if there's a producing well, what is the flow rate? You need a minimum of 5 to 10 gallons per minute to support a household and horses. Anything less than that, and you're looking at water shortages during peak use. Third, what's the depth of the well? Wells in Vail can be anywhere from 200 feet to 600 feet deep. Deeper wells are more expensive to drill and more expensive to maintain. Now, here's the nightmare scenario. You buy a property with no well, thinking you'll just drill one. Drilling a well in Pima County costs anywhere between $15,000 to $30,000, and there's no guarantee you'll hit water. Some areas in Vail have excellent groundwater, others don't. If you drill and don't hit water, you just spent 30 grand for nothing, and you still don't have a water source. Let me give you another complication. Shared wells. Some properties in Vail are on shared wells, meaning multiple properties share this one well. This is common in older subdivisions. Shared wells can absolutely work, but you need to know who's responsible for the maintenance. What happens if the well pump fails? Who pays for repairs? What are the rules around water usage? I've seen deals fall apart because the shared well agreement was so vague or non-existent, and the buyer realized they'd be sharing water with neighbors who weren't contributing to the upkeep. And then there's hauled water. If a property doesn't have a well and you can't get one, you might have to haul water in. That means buying water from a delivery service and storing it in tanks. Hauled water can get expensive, and it's not suitable for horse property unless you have a small operation. Bottom line, before you buy horse property in Vail, you need to know the water situation inside and out. Get the well inspected, get the flow rate tested, confirm the depth, and if there's no well, get a hydrologist to assess whether drilling is feasible. Water is a non-negotiable, especially when you're in the desert. Issue number 3, infrastructure is expensive. Let's say you found property with good zoning and reliable water. Great. Now you need to think about the infrastructure required to actually keep horses. Most horse properties in Vail are on septic systems, not sewer. That's fine, but septic systems need to be sized correctly for the number of people and animals using the property. If you're adding horses, you might need to expand your septic system or install a separate system for barn runoff. That's usually $10,000 to $25,000. Next, utilities. Many properties in Vail are not on natural gas. You'll be using propane. That means you need a propane tank, and you need to budget for propane delivery. Electricity is another consideration. If you're building a barn or installing an arena, you'll need to run electric lines. That can cost thousands depending on the distance from your main panel. And then there's the internet. A lot of horse properties in Vail are in areas with limited or no high-speed internet. If you work from home or need reliable connectivity, this is something you need to confirm before you buy. I've had clients fall in love with a property only to realize they can't get internet fast enough to work remotely. And that's definitely a deal breaker. Issue number 4, fencing and facilities are not optional. If you're buying horse property, you need proper fencing, and proper fencing in Arizona is expensive. Let me break down the cost for you. Standard horse fencing in Vail is either pipe fencing or combination of pipe and wire. Pipe fencing is the safest and most durable option, but it's also the most expensive. To fence 5 acres with pipe fencing, you're looking at anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000, depending on the terrain and the number of runs you need. If you go with wire fencing, it is cheaper, but wire fencing requires way more maintenance, and it's not as safe for the horses. Horses can get tangled in wire, especially if they spook. Here's another thing to consider. Arizona is the desert. That means the ground is hard. Digging post holes in caliche, which is the hardened layer of soil we have here, it's brutal. You need specialized equipment, and that adds on to the cost. Now, let's talk about the facilities. Does the property have a barn? If yes, is it functional? A lot of older barns in Vail were built decades ago and haven't been maintained. You might be looking at significant repairs or even a complete rebuild. If there's no barn, you're building from scratch. A basic 3-stall barn with a tack room and storage starts between $30,000 to $60,000. If you want covered stalls, wash racks, and feed room, you're looking at $80,000 to $150,000. And that's just the barn. If you want an arena, you're adding another $20,000 to $100,000 depending on whether it's covered, what footing you use, and how much grading is required. A lot of buyers underestimate these costs. They think, I'll just add the barn later, but later turns into never because the cost is prohibitive. My advice, if you're serious about keeping horses, buy a property that already has the infrastructure in place. It's almost always cheaper than building it yourself. Issue number 5, hidden costs add up fast. Let's talk about ongoing expenses of owning horse property in Vail. First, water. If you're on a well, you're paying for electricity to run the pump. If you're hauling water, you're paying for the delivery. Either way, water costs add up, especially in summer when horses are drinking more. A single horse drinks 5 to 10 gallons of water per day. If you have 4 horses, that's 40 gallons. Over a month, that's 1,200 gallons. And if you're hauling water, you're paying 50 to 100 per delivery, depending on the provider. That's just the delivery, that's not the water amount. Second, feed and hay. Hay in Arizona is expensive because we don't grow much of it locally. A bale of quality horse hay can cost $15 to $25. If you're feeding 4 horses, you're going through multiple bales per week. That's probably about $500 to $1,000 per month just for hay. Third is your veterinary and farrier costs. Horses need regular vet checkups, vaccinations, and hoof care. Budget $1,500 to $3,000 per horse per year for basic maintenance. Fourth is your property taxes. Horse property in Vail is generally more affordable than other parts of Tucson, but you're still looking at property taxes based on acreage and improvements. A 5-acre property with a home and a barn might have annual property taxes of $2,000 to $4,000 depending on the assessed value. Fifth is maintenance. Rural properties require more maintenance than suburban homes. You're dealing with dirt roads, desert landscaping, well upkeep, septic maintenance, and fencing repairs. Budget at least $3,000 to $5,000 per year for general property maintenance. When you add it all up to the ongoing cost of owning horse property, that can easily exceed $2,000 per month, and that's on top of your mortgage. A lot of buyers don't factor this in. They see the purchase price and think it's so affordable, but they don't account for the operational costs. So those are 5 things nobody tells you about buying horse property in Vail. Zoning is more complicated than you think. Water is your biggest hidden risk. Infrastructure is expensive. Fencing and facilities are not optional, and hidden costs can add up fast. Does that mean you shouldn't buy horse property? Absolutely not. Horse property in Vail is incredible. The lifestyle is unmatched. The space, the privacy, the connection to the land, it's why people move here. But you need to go into it with your eyes open. You need to know what you're getting into, and you need to ask the right questions, and need to work with someone who understands the nuances of buying rural property in Arizona. Here's my question for you. Are you currently looking for horse property in Vail or the surrounding areas? Drop it in the comments. And if you want my complete horse property buyer's checklist with every question you need to ask before you buy, shoot me a text that says horse checklist. I'll send it right over. If you're serious about buying horse property in Vail, Sonoita, Tinker Verde, or anywhere in Southern Arizona, we should definitely talk. This is what I specialize in. I know the areas, I know the properties, and I know what to look for. Call or text me at 520-980-9880. I'd love to help you find the right property and avoid the expensive mistakes. I'm Meg Estees, your AZ homegirl, and I'll see you out on the ranch. If you found this helpful, hit the subscribe button. I'm putting out 2 videos a week covering Southern Arizona real estate, ranch properties, and everything you need to know about living here.